We're going to take this time right now to talk about the residential life opportunities here at Sacred Heart University. We're joined by Joel Quintong, Associate Dean of Students, as well as the Director of Residential Life, and Beth Ann Voigt-Jaws, who is our first year coordinator for housing in the freshman areas. So first of all, Joel, let's talk a little bit about the overall aspect of the importance of residential life here at Sacred Heart.
Sure, thanks, Rob. Residential life is a very important part of our experience for students here at the university. We view the residence halls as an extension of the classroom. So while you'll be getting instruction and you'll get classroom time, we don't view that the learning is going to stop there in the classroom. We view that the residence halls will be a place where students will learn in particular about themselves and how they learn with other people. So we see that even though the classroom time may end at a certain time, that the learning does not stop.
So for students that are watching that may live in the general vicinity of Sacred Heart, who may be thinking about either commuting to Sacred Heart or being a residential student, what advice can you give that student?
Sure, I think it depends from family to family, but where possible, the opportunity to live on campus will provide an experience that you could not get in any other setting at any other time. To be able to share a space with somebody else, to be able to live in community with other freshmen or sophomores or so forth, the ability to just walk outside of your building and have access to all of the resources of the university are something that is only afforded by living on campus.
Over the last few years, we have had the ability to open up brand new residential halls for our students, providing the best in experience for our students. Can you talk a little bit about the function of the residence hall and what that provides for incoming Sacred Heart students?
Sure. The residence hall really becomes their home away from home. So they'll be engaged in the process of picking their roommate, for example, pretty early on in the spring. And then they'll also be able to preference where they would want to live. So that's all stuff that happens pretty early on throughout the spring and into the early summer. The function of the hall is to be their home away from home. Okay. So they're going to make themselves home. They're going to get settled in. They're going to use that as the place where they're going to be away from their own hometown's home.
Yeah.
And they're going to be here on campus, being able to kind of set their roots. Like I said before, learn about themselves, learn about the area, learn about Sacred Heart in general. So it becomes their nice little spot where they can set up as home.
One other question before we get into the breakdown of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. Talk about how you integrate your staff in supervision of the students, supervision of the buildings, and then also the resident success assistants that we have here at Sacred Heart.
Sure, yeah. Our students are well taken care of. We have campus-wide a staff of about 100 RSAs. Those are resident success assistants. Those are the undergraduate students, the peer leaders of sorts, the ones who are identified by us as being excellent role models, student leaders, and they oversee a floor or an area of students. So they're responsible for their overall growth and development. They're also there to make sure that things are going well and that the standards of the community are being met. Above them, there's a residence hall director, and those are our professional staff people, so employees of the university, that are there to ensure that the whole building is working well and that the students and the staff are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and if there's any problems, they become the front line for that. Beth Ann has served that role many times in the past, so maybe I'll let you talk about some of those interactions that the RSAs would have.
Sure. So the RSAs all live on the floor with the residents. In many cases, they, are the same gender as that student because we separate as much as we can by gender. So in addition to living there, they also serve in a role on duty every night. So we always have a staff member available from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. in our duty office in every building in case they need something. So they can go to any RSA within the building. In addition, we have staff, the residence hall directors are staffed in those buildings, in those offices as well. So they're available during the daytime hours and some of the evening hours for students to have meetings with, drop by, and just basically be available as much as possible for anything that the students may need in their living experience, but also sometimes just when they're looking for the guidance of who they need to talk to as a resource on campus, who can we direct them to help with their other issues, their academic questions, how to get connected and involved in things on campus. A lot of what we do is directing them and being a resource.
So let's break it down, and we'll stick with you, Beth Ann.
Yeah.
Talk about the first year residential experience. So students that are coming in as an incoming freshman, what can they expect out of the experience living on campus?
So from the physical aspect of their room, we have double and triple rooms for our first year students. In many cases, they are living in a space where they have a common bathroom or shower to use. So they are interacting with their floor as well as their direct roommates.
Okay.
They are hopefully then getting to know everybody that lives around them. We really want to develop a community, and so the RSAs will plan different events to help them get to know each other, to kind of keep things interesting in the building and keep them engaged and provide opportunities for them to connect with each other outside of their academic experience. And in addition, we also do have living and learning communities that we offer for our first year students.
Okay.
So for honors students, they have the opportunity to live and go to class with the same students that they would be interacting with in either environment. So they can go to class and be engaged in the same type of academic work and then come back to their building and study group together and kind of get to know each other in that way as well. And we have the same opportunity for our business students, for students that are interested in kind of like a healthy lifestyle, health and
SHU
wellness, SHU Well, our community and justice program, which would be for students who are interested in volunteering and engaged in our volunteer programs office, and then also would be living together, and then our gaming and technology, which is geared to those students that have that interest as well.
All right. Joel, Beth Ann just brought up the living learning communities. The majority of the living learning communities are housed in Roncalli Hall, and we'll talk about the halls in just a moment. But talk a little bit about the advantage of the students that may be already accepted or in the future may be interested in the honors program when they come to Sacred Heart, and based on their academic criteria, what the advantage of being in the honors program in our living learning communities provides students academically.
Sure. The honor students are required to be a member of the living learning community for honors, and those students would live in Toussaint Hall and Bergoglio Hall, which are the two most recent additions to our housing program.
Okay.
And we have them there because it affords the honors program a different kind of space to be able to have more intentional kinds of smaller group conversations, and also some of the larger group discussions that would be moderated by our academic partners who work with the living learning communities for the honor students specifically. So it's a nice little perk.
Now, continuing on with the first year experience, let's talk about once a student has made the commitment to come to Sacred Heart, put their deposit in, what are the next steps for those students in the way of residential life?
Sure. So a student would need to register with us for housing that they intend on living in university housing. And that would be taking place mid to late March at the earliest.
Okay.
Right? And then that would go through April or so. Around the end of April, probably beginning of May, we will send out all of the students who decided to come and live on campus the opportunity to start to shop for their roommate.
Okay.
So they would have the opportunity to use software called My College Roomie, which is it's a online environment where students who are incoming to the university would be able to meet other students for the purposes of trying to find a roommate or roommates.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you suggest students take the advantage of finding their own roommates? And what if a student doesn't have the potential to find their own roommate? Do you provide the assistance with finding somebody to live with freshman year?
Yeah, the beauty of what our system allows is that it's open to the student. It's what the student feels comfortable with. We have the opportunity to use My College Roomie, so you could find a roommate if that's something that you really would like to do. We also allow students, by and large, to be able to choose someone that they already know from maybe from their hometown. There's a couple of nuances there regarding selecting someone that you might know, kind of quote unquote offline, but that opportunity is there. And there's also the opportunity to go random. Students say, I really don't have a preference, I just want to get paired up by whoever, and that's oftentimes a common request.
Okay.
So we offer all three of those opportunities in terms of roommates. So you can do as much as you want, or you can do as little as you want, and anywhere in between.
Okay. Beth Ann, to move up next to the next level, what is the transition for students coming in, leaving their freshman year and then going into sophomore year residential living?
Sure. So for our sophomore residential options, they are mostly suite style or apartment style, because we do have what we consider a progressive housing model, where we want our students to start to develop some of those skills as they progress through our housing to be able to live a little bit more independently.
Okay.
So for sophomore year, they're looking at some more semi-private suite bathrooms. Sometimes they have half kitchens or full kitchens as well, and they would be going through that process to match with the roommates that they want to live with, select their group, and choose their housing in the second semester in the spring around March and April.
Okay.
So they get to visit all of these buildings, look at photos and videos of what these apartments look like, and have a little bit of ownership in the process to determine what's going to be a good fit for them in their sophomore year.
And then let's talk about the last 2 years, junior and senior year, and what's available for students in the way of on and off campus housing.
So for our juniors and seniors that choose to live in our residential housing, they are very independent, full apartment style buildings. So as many as 5 people in an apartment, and as few as maybe 2 people in an apartment. And these buildings are located outside of the main gates of campus. So they're slightly off campus, as close as 3/4 of a mile to a mile away, in areas of town where we have other residential facilities, as well as a lot of our juniors and seniors who choose to not go through residential life for housing and independently lease. They live in that area as well. So our students are still really connected to campus, and we have a shuttle system that will get them here. We still have the RSAs and the residence hall directors and public safety staffing those buildings. So the experience that they get there is the same that they would get in their first or second year in their buildings that might be within the main gates of campus.
I'd also like to add, Gilly, that students we require our freshmen and sophomores to live in
on
university
campus,
housing.
so there is a requirement.
Yep, they have to live in university housing their freshman and sophomore year. And we guarantee housing for our juniors and seniors as long as they go through our selection process properly.
Okay. And how many students freshman, sophomore year that have to live on campus actually do live on campus? What's the percentage?
It's about 93% right
Okay.
now.
So that would leave 7% commuters.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
all right.
The number's been going up, actually.
Okay.
So.
Over the last, we were talking about some of the buildings that we've grown up, so that have gone up in the last few years, but we have had some traditional halls that have been at the forefront of our freshman housing. So the oldest freshman residence halls that we have on campus were built in 1994, so a little over 25 years old, which is, compared to other schools, babies, compared to some things that people are living in.
Yep.
But let's talk about the different options for freshman year. So let's talk about, first of all, Thomas Merton Hall and Elizabeth Ann Seton Halls, and how's that laid out?
Sure. The Merton and Seton are what we consider the courtyard buildings.
Okay.
Those are 2 buildings that are right across the right across the way. I mean, that's just it's right on campus, very 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 close to the main academic building.
Yeah.
They are, for all intents and purposes, one area. We treat them as 2 separate buildings with their own identity, but for the most part, they are one area.
And both buildings are similar to each other, correct?
Very very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about close to 800 students will live in Seton and Merton.
Let's talk about Roncalli Hall,
Mhm.
which is just adjacent to main campus, right
Mhm.
across the street. Talk about that facility.
10-story high-rise, modified suite style.
Mhm.
It's got 8 floors of students who reside there. There's a couple of academic departments. The residential life office is located in Roncalli. Most of the living learning communities are in Roncalli Hall as well. It's I'm going to say a short walk just to the gate of the university. But once you're there, it's really it's hardly any different.
And there's also a small fitness center included
Yes,
in
yeah.
that facility.
And a
correct?
game room as well.
A game room as well. And then we had already mentioned Pierre Toussaint Hall and Jorge Bergoglio halls, which are used for a majority of freshmen in the honors program.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And those are the latest new constructions. Those are pod style, so it's 2 rooms that share a half bath or a full bath. It's a touch more private than Seton and Merton. Tends to be a little bit quieter.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a sleepy building. It's just that it's the nature of the architecture is it's just a touch quieter.
One of the questions that we get a lot, I know you get a lot as well, is can I pick where I want to live?
You can preference where you'd like to live.
Okay.
There's an opportunity in the housing registration form to select which buildings you would prefer to live in.
Okay.
We try our best to accommodate it. Generally speaking, most of Toussaint and Bergoglio will be occupied by the incoming honors students.
Okay. And then, in the construction of the facilities, one of the big projects the university is working now is the Upper Quad Residential Village. And the first building that opened on that property was Pierre Toussaint Hall. And then we just opened up 2 recent buildings. Can you talk about those that just opened, and then what the timeline is for the rest of the buildings to be opened over the next couple of years?
Sure. So the twin buildings,
Yeah.
it's Frassati Hall and Elie Wiesel Hall. Those are apartment style.
Okay.
Those are for sophomores right now.
Okay.
The next wave of buildings will be opening up in January 2021. Those 2 new buildings will be magnificent as well. They'll be literally on the opposite side of the Upper Quad. And then the last building, which will have a dining hall in it, is going to open in August of 2021.
Okay. So relatively over the next year and a half or so.
Yes.
Okay. For many people out there, especially parents of students that may be moving in as early as this coming year who are seniors, is there any resources available about what you can bring and what you can't bring in to the halls when you move in?
The Residential Life website is a great resource for all that. We'll also send out information to all incoming students pertinent to moving in and that experience.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also have a good footprint on Instagram.
Okay.
So our staff loves to share all of the things that are going on in the halls throughout the year. So definitely, it's a good follow. At SHU Res Life.
All right. And then all of the residential life facilities on our campus are available to view using picture and virtual formats on the Residential Life website. So during this age of virtual connectivity, we invite you to go onto the Residential Life website at www.sacredheart.edu so that you can be able to see all the different options that you may have the opportunity to live in during your 4 years. So we thank Joel Quintong and Beth Ann Jaws from the Department of Residential Life here at Sacred Heart for sharing their tidbits on how to be a residential student at the university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.